Entrepreneurialism comes in many forms: sector, type, scale, timing, growth. There is limitless variety. This section has a different take. We're focusing on intergenerational entrepreneurialism, or more directly, what it's like to be the fifth generation of a family running a family business. We are delighted to welcome Eleanor Thatcher of the admirable local to regional to national to international success story that is Thatchers.
Hello, Eleanor. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Let's just check that our microphones work. They work? We're all good. So we're delighted to have you here today to talk about Thatchers as a business, your role, various aspects of the use of technology, about the importance of sustainability. But to scene set, please give a sense of scale to people here of Thatchers currently, whatever the metrics might be, of turnover, of gallons, of bottles, of whatever. Yeah.
Well, we're the number 2 cider maker in the UK now. And if you look back to 1904, we were a small mixed farm with cows, sheep, grew some vegetables and made some cider. And at that time, it was about paying our workers in cider. And therefore, those that made the best cider attracted the best workers. So we've grown from there. We've grown 1,200% in the last 15 years, 10 times in the last 10 years, to become the number 2 cider maker in the UK. We export across the globe from Dubai, Australia, and Spain. So quite a lot of growth, but very much still true to our roots here in Somerset.
Almost literally true to your roots, and we'll come to that exact point. But again, if you can imagine graphing that, we had a conversation last night with James Courtney of Lux Rewards about his graph of growth. He tried to graph 1904, whatever level of growth in and out, and so on, and then the last few years, absolutely exponential growth. It must be an extraordinary experience. But I want to take you back to an earlier stage of your own involvement. I say with Thatchers, I mean, it's the family business. It's your dad, it's your grandfather, the parents. But what was it like being you as a I don't know, 6, 7, 8-year-old or whatever, on the farm and realizing this is a big old playground, but it's a business. What did you do?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea, and I absolutely love what I do. I always say to people, making cider is not a job, it's a way of life, and that's very much how I feel about it. But I've got very fond memories of growing up with my family, learning about apples. I would go out with my grandfather during harvest, and we have this orchard that's got 458 different varieties in it. And
458 varieties
different
of apple.
varieties of apple, yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Thought apples is apples. Yeah.
I know. And I'd go out with him, and I'd kind of learn from him about the different varieties. And that kind of continued during growing up on the farm, getting involved and working. And I've worked in every single part of the business from the ground up.
But keeps those very young age for this part of it. You're surrounded by the sights and the smells and the 458 varieties of apples and so on. What was the time when you went, I don't know, picking apples, I guess, or picking up apples maybe? The very first thing you did that was anything which actually sort of connected to a business as opposed to, learning or whatever?
Oh gosh, that's a really tricky question because it all merges into one. But I think for me, I can remember going out and seeing people in the business who too have grown with the business as we've grown, and kind of working with them. And I don't think there was a moment when I kind of realised, we make cider and we're Thatchers. I think it's just always been part of something we've done. There's not a very blurred line.
But you were also, I don't know, weighing fruit in summer holidays as a, I don't know, teenager perhaps or whatever. Yeah.
So, my first job was weighing in all the apples into the mill in the summer holidays. And then from there, I went and made wine in Australia for a few years. So I left the family business, which was really invaluable. I think kind of growing up in a business, you kind of can get very stuck and only see what you can see. But actually going out and seeing other businesses has been really invaluable to me. And then I came back from that and I worked around more areas of the business. And, I can drive a tractor, I can drive a forklift, I've loaded lorries, I've worked in the pub, I now work in IT. I've done a lot of different things to understand the business.
And tell us this from a personal business development point of view. How much of this was schematic? You're going to be, and this probably sounds rather corporate, but I suspect this is not how it works at all. You're going to be here for 6 months, you're going to be there for 3 months, you're going to learn and so on. Or how much of it was sort of just happenstance and personal interest and need, I guess, at times as well, in those early-ish days in your first few formal roles within the business?
Yeah, I think when you work on a family farm, you just do what you need to do. And out of that kind of came learning a lot of things. So kind of something would happen, right, we need to go and help over there, we'll go and do that. I've got a really fond memory of having a breakdown on one of our lines. And that night, Dad was like, right, you need to just go and do that tonight. And that's how you learn. Like, you just go and do whatever you need to do and whatever that might be. And I think that's really important.
And these, all of these tales at EntreConf, our Entrepreneur's Tale here, are all about how different people come to form an understanding and a connection with the idea of entrepreneurialism and learning through, dynastically almost, through, probably the wrong word again, but through generationally at least, through Thatchers, multiple different experiences, broadening your experiences. But let's come to this. As you developed and became a little bit older, probably into your early 20s at this point or so, at what point have you been able to have greater freedom of opportunity to say, how about this, or why don't we do that, or could I do that?
I think our business has always been quite innovative in what we do. We launched Blood Orange in 2022, and at the time that was a big change for the category and something really new, but we were the best NPD of that year. So
sorry, NPD?
New Product Development.
Oh, NPD, sorry. Yes,
yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And so we've always had this kind of innovative streak within what we do, and that continued with Juicy Apple this year.
And there's much greater automation now than then, and your part in that and the application of technology within the company?
Yeah, so technology is really important. We've just implemented, in the last year, a new fully automated dark warehouse that is 17,500 pallet spaces, all robots, and it's been a really great opportunity for the business. It's one of the only ones of its kind because it links our production lines with our warehouse directly, which is quite unusual.
And a huge capital investment. I don't know if that's ever quantified, but some millions, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
And you're not going to tell me. I gather that.
Yeah, a big investment, the biggest project we'd ever done as a business.
And what was your involvement in terms of either early stage, perhaps suggesting it or thinking about how it might be implemented, or indeed then its implementation? Not perhaps the tech, but the use of the tech.
Yeah, I think kind of when I think about what's my role within the business, it's about kind of looking forward, but also looking back, because what my previous generations learnt and knew about, it's important that I don't forget that, but still look forward and look to new ideas, new technology, new products, and how we can ensure that we continue to meet the needs of our customers. I think that's a really key point, that we continue to move the cider industry forward. And
to amplify that, is that sort of what brand Eleanor brings to Thatchers? It's the modern innovation, new ways of thinking, but allied to traditional techniques on the bedrock of a fantastic company. Is that broadly where you are?
Yeah, and definitely. And there's an element that I'm really passionate about around sustainability and how, for the long term, we need to protect the environment. And we've bought a piece of land 3 years ago, and we put it through a regenerative farming program, and we saw a 22% increase in organic matter in the soil, which is pretty good. And
that's lovely, well understated, but pretty good, really.
And so improving what we do in terms of farming. Last year we put in a CO2 recovery plant that collects the CO2 from our fermentations, cleans it up and puts it back in as bubbles into our pints.
And again, your role in it. I mean, you are a modest person, but how How significant was your part in some of these projects, and indeed some of the thinking or the impulse directionally?
Yeah, I think I always think of, in our business, it's very much about a team, but it's also about our family. Dad and I, and my grandparents are still, we are all very involved in the business, and therefore those kind of decisions and thoughts come together in that environment, which is quite unusual, I know, but it's where a lot of thoughts come.
We talked yesterday briefly, and it's a strange metaphor about entrepreneurialism. Is it more akin to height? There's not a great deal you can do about it, but take the benefit of it. Or weight? Yes, you can do as you choose. You can't separate nature and nurture from your story. You know, growing up on the farm, in the business, with your parents, with your grandparents, with your father, Martin, as the 4th generation boss of Thatchers. But how do you think you personally, what's your learning mode of learning about the business and entrepreneurialism? Is it essentially by osmosis of being part of it, those breakfast time, lunchtime, whatever conversations? Or is it formal? Is it based on your own personal curiosity and desire to learn?
I think, to be honest, it's a mix of all of them. I think a lot of it has been through osmosis and being there and learning. It's also learning from other people in the business. So Gary, our operations director, has worked for the business since he was 18, and back then he was chasing around cows.
Is that a job? Is that quite an interesting thing to do, I suppose. But
yeah.
Why was he chasing cows?
Because we had cows at that time.
Who weren't meant to be there?
No. On the farm we would milk. So.
Silly me. Okay. I thought they were in the orchards also. Get the, whatever.
No.
Okay. And you say he was 18. Roughly,
yeah,
how
18.
old is he now? Ish.
30s.
Oh,
40s.
very young.
Yeah.
Very
So, but he's grown up in the business, and I think learning from people like him and the experience he's had has been invaluable to me, and kind of. Because I obviously can't remember certain elements before, so hearing their stories and how the business has grown, but also for us as a business, it's really important that we bring people all the way through the business, so kind of from starting out on the farm all the way up to operations director.
Was that you or me? I don't know. It's some sort of ding, wasn't it? Yeah. It wasn't you. Yeah.
So that's why we started our apprenticeship scheme. Now 20% of our workforce have either been an apprentice or are on an apprenticeship program. The industry standard is about 5%. So
it's admirable.
Yeah.
It's absolutely admirable.
Yeah.
But it's also in itself, it's a form of sustainability. It's sort of inherent and baked in. But and again, I'm going to keep pushing on this, and you're going to keep perhaps pushing me back. Your own role in that, the concept of apprentices has been key to Thatchers for some time, but how key has your role been in that, and slightly more broadly around the culture of Thatchers?
I think my role in that is actually part of that. I always say I'm on a massive apprenticeship program.
One of the very best, one would imagine, with all that experience, yeah. The business growing so fast.
And actually, for the business to continue to succeed, I need really good people around me, and that's really important. So my part in getting to know those people is really important, and working with them is really important. And I've spent kind of a lot of time working on projects. Izzy, again, another one that started with us at 18. I've worked for a long period of time on the new warehouse project with her, and building those relationships is really key, I think, moving forward. But on the culture point, that's an incredibly important part of what we do. Without culture, you've nothing. It really is true. And there's a number of kind of guiding principles in our business. We have 7 principles that everyone in the business knows.
To give us a top line, I
Yeah,
don't know
okay.
if you've got something engraved. Oh God, don't ask me the exact 7, but yeah.
If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
That's the first.
Yeah, they're very
Okay.
simple.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Very good. Yeah.
Take risks. Change is inevitable. Be proud of what you do, and
We'll come back to it. We'll come back. But
think that was
but
7. I think it
the
was 7.
clarity of thinking in a very good way, the simplifying and simple version of what the business is an underpinning factor both to its success but also to its culture.
Yeah.
I guess. Let's ask you this. What scope do you have to be entrepreneurial? What freedom do you have?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit, and you're not going to tell us how much, or quite a bit, and you would like more.
I think coming through the business, I've learned a lot of things and continue to learn, and I kind of want to continue to shape the business and drive it forward. That's very much what I want to do. But I already kind of have a lot of kind of autonomy and putting through new ideas, and that doesn't mean you do every idea, because not all ideas are good ideas, but we have the opportunity to raise those ideas and talk about them, and some never see the light of day, but some, like Blood Orange, do, or Juicy Apple, which we spent a long time developing. Ciders take a long time to develop. Not the cider industry doesn't have a research department anymore, and therefore any development that you do has to be done by companies. So that takes a lot of work, a lot of time. We're doing trials in our orchards that are going to take 10, 15 years to see the results. And then you pair that with a really fast-moving consumer market. And it's a really interesting industry to be in.
Yeah, and when you think about the previous discussion which we had about AI with Nathan Baranovsky of Digital Wonder Lab and the panelists, that is changing exponentially day by day, arguably even hour by hour. Yours has got so much longevity, so much learnt experience, that it's a quite dissimilar, and yet the need to interpret, to have that analytical approach is as apparent in your businesses as it is in others. Do you do work with the universities at all? Do they play a part in helping with analysis here? Please say yes a bit.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
To varying kind of degrees. So we've done some work with universities, but we are doing a lot of our own research because we think that's really important. And one of our main kind of trials is around how the climate is changing and how we adapt to that. So we've got a number of French varieties on a modern rootstock. So that's a growing root. So you produce a smaller tree, for example. And we know that we're getting wetter periods during harvest and it's drier during the growing season. And therefore, we really have to start to look at what varieties are better adapted to that.
And just to take a related but slightly stand-back point, the British or European wine industry keeps going further north. There's Scottish wines, there's Swedish wines. Back in the days, it's not so far back, it was only Mediterranean-based, hotter culture, drier culture. The macro effect, the effect of a macro change on your business, climate change, is, what does it do to the produce? Talk a little bit about that, about the yield or the juiciness. You can see I'm deeply au fait with this area. What does it mean? And what are you thinking about if one assumes, for now at least, that trend is only going to continue, get worse?
Yeah, I think it's hard to know exactly, but we can start to see the trends. So we're seeing that during the growing season now, there's often blossom on the trees as well as apples, and now that is not normal.
Is that not good?
That's not good.
Right.
And in terms of crop, we're gonna have a big crop this year, which is great. But when you get wetter orchards at kind of November time, you can't actually get out and harvest. So I think there's a few indications, but that's why you've got to plan your farm and kind of move things around and pick the right varieties. But that takes a lot of research and time.
And from a business point of view, you've got at least two time horizons. One is this year's harvest, but two is 2, 3, 5 years. How long does it take to grow an apple tree such you can get a decent yield from, roughly speaking? I mean, that's some years.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. Imagine that. You know, you have to do something now. There's no value. There's all cost, all time, variables of climate, cultural change, societal change, taste change, and so on. And you eventually get the value in 7 years' time. It's a continuous. It's not a nothing and then 7 years. Your business is continually cycling through that approach. Tell us this. Let's step back to you personally. You mentioned you worked in wine in Australia. Mm-hmm. Thinking then-ish, but really now where you are and looking forward, what else might you have done other than work for Thatchers? And indeed, you can see where this is going. What else might you do in subsequent times if it is not Thatchers?
I think that's a really interesting question. I sometimes get asked that and I think, gosh, what would I actually do? I think I'd probably be making wine. I have a real passion around cider making, and winemaking and cider making are actually quite similar. So I think I'd be doing something like that. I also kind of really enjoy getting out and speaking to customers. And kind of as part of my role now, I look after Tesco, which is a really interesting experience.
Well, let's come on to that. If we're talking about a variety of a business, we've had, I'm sure, there's an Elysian sense of this family business and the orchard and the trees and the smell and the kid running around that you were, etc., etc., and then dealing with Tesco, or dealing with major multinationals, and with respect to them, incredibly successful business, but some of the toughest people you might ever imagine negotiating with. And in some ways that's quite surprising for you, but tell us about that, how you, and I mean that positively, how you sort of approach that. You're dealing with those people they have a very, very hard, reductive bottom line to focus on.
I think for me, it's kind of been a really interesting experience, and it's really important that you understand your customers. They're the ones that buy the product at the end of the day, and if they don't want to buy it, you're not going to sell it. So for me, in terms of just understanding, it's been incredibly, incredibly valuable. I always feel a really proud moment when you see a new product go onto the shelf, or someone's picking a can of Thatcher's Gold off the shelf in the supermarket. So I think, it's a really invaluable experience for me.
But that's quite a dissimilar experience from inside the business, the culture, the values, sustainability, trees, orchards, etc. You're there, and this is right at the heart of the business. Is it about 30% is through? I can't remember the number. I can't think what it is.
So a lot goes through retailers in the business, as well as we have business within pubs.
So you're right at the pointy end of the business at that point. Is your mode different, or are you still the same Eleanor within the business?
Hopefully I'm still the same Eleanor, because I think that's been very much part of being in the business that I've kind of probably grown into more than kind of always had, is that very much being my own person, being in a family business where your dad is the managing director and head cider maker. It's very easy to feel you have to be a certain type of person, but I've very much felt that I want to be independent and create my own way and do things my own way. And I've had managers all through my journey through the business that I report into, so I wasn't reporting directly into my dad. But we would still talk about the business around the dinner table.
I'm sure many long and varied were those conversations. Well, let's talk about that personal aspect, the dad factor. Did you feel you in any way had to sort of prove yourself as the daughter of the bloke who runs the business, the fourth generation of Thatchers, that you were somehow potentially viewed differently by the team? They may have viewed you as that kid running around the orchard, as back in the day. Alternatively, you are the next generation beginning to take over the business. Did you have to prove do you have to prove yourself?
Yeah, I think you do. But my grandfather said something really interesting to me one day, and he said, yes, you have to prove yourself, absolutely. But remember, everyone in the business is looking at you and wanting you to succeed, because that provides this, stability for them, because they know who the next managing director will be. And I hadn't really thought of it in that way before, but I think it's a really interesting point, and actually is a really big selling point for certain people, that there's stability in a business, and they want to come and work for an innovative family business that makes changes quickly.
I'm going to ask you a question which I asked your dad, Martin, at a Bristol Life Network lunch. We all do recycling, so there we are. I'm recycling a question here. How young were you when you realised that you might be running it at some stage? Is it a little bit like being royal heir apparent, that you think, hang on, oh my lord?
My parents never forced me into the business. It was very much, I could go and do whatever I wanted. Hence, I went and made wine for a while and realised I had this passion for fermentation and how yeast and everything in that world works. So there was no pressure within that. But I think being involved in the family business, it's not so much about wanting to lead it, it's about wanting to be involved in it and being involved in every part of it and driving it forwards. I think for Dad and I, we very much feel that we have responsibility to our 250 employees, and that is very much at the forefront of our mind when we're making decisions in the business.
It's almost a custodial or custodian's approach that to curate, to run, to look after a business and attempt to leave it in at least as good shape, or indeed in a better shape than it was when you first ascended, whenever that might be. Throw it open to questions. There's a fascinating strands of entrepreneurialism about the importance of sustainability. We'll come on to the brand and the true to the roots point as well in a moment. If we have the house lights up a little bit, I might stand a chance of seeing any waving hands. Is that? There's, I can see that one on the end. Thank you. And again, please say your name and your company when you have the mic. Thank you.
Hi, Alex Mitchell, Harborside Corporate Finance. Is this on?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good to hear you talk, particularly about sustainability. And I was wondering if there was much collaboration with competitors in the market, particularly on sustainable issues. Do you share ideas, particularly with the length of time that they take to develop and come to fruition?
Yeah, we do. I think kind of having farming in our roots, there's a lot of sharing in that world because we all want to get the best yield and look after our environment in the best way we can. So there's a lot of sharing within that, and there's also just a lot of sharing in the farming industry. I think we've got a lot of ideas from what people are doing within other crops as well as just apples. So, yeah.
Good question. Thank you, Alex. One more. Right at the very back, top right corner, please. Yeah.
Hi, George Gruber from Nando's. Fascinating topic, Eleanor. Quick question on, with great appreciation, I think, for the difference between a product and a service and the timeline that it takes to develop. I think also on sustainability, just to note for many in the room, an observation that, you know, being in the food industry, we've taken a lot for granted. We're living in times where some of the ingredients we need and look for just aren't available because of climate change. So when you see gaps on the supermarket shelves, just be aware that it's a reality today. The actual question is, for your business, the role of sort of omni-channel or multi-channel, because I think that's something that you may be well established, but a lot of consumer businesses are finding a need or have a desire to build that. Any thoughts on?
Mm-hmm. So by that, do you mean things like Uber and or
operating across multiple channels?
Yeah. So we're already operating kind of across the on-trade, so into pubs and wholesale and grocery. I think the new kind of exciting area is around direct-to-consumer. I think that's something that's really interesting. We do it currently, but could we do more? Probably yes. I think people are looking for more personalised experience than they ever were, and we're very aware of that. So I think it is a big opportunity, and it's only going to grow, I think.
Thank you. And George, by the way, is we're talking to George at a Bath Life Network lunch in the autumn about what it is to be the chair of a huge-scale business in the hospitality trade as Nando's. And thank you for that question. I think we're going to come towards the end of this session. Now, I want to talk about authenticity, brand, true to your roots. On the one hand, most businesses, any business, are looking to scale, to add value to top and bottom line, and reach out and evolve over time. On the other, yours is so rooted, and they're not necessarily opposites, but yours is so literally rooted in the soil. How do you think about the authenticity of Thatchers, that it's a huge business? People might think that it's owned by Anheuser-Busch or whomever. It's a multinational, it's a drinks brand. But you're not. You're an authentic, local, West Country brand. How does that figure?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my kind of, I guess, frustrations, that people presume that we're owned by a big corporate company, and actually we're still made, all our cider is made at Myrtle Farm in Sandford. And we're very proud of that, and we talk about it on our advertising campaigns. And I think
those wonderful ads, so they're terrific.
yeah,
There's
made
Martin.
by Aardman, yeah.
Aardman,
Yeah,
obviously a
yeah,
brilliant
another
local
Bristol
company.
business.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that is, it's really important that we talk about what we do. And we've planted another 70 acres of orchard this year. We've got over 500 acres of orchards in Somerset. We employ a lot of local people. So I think, yeah, it's really kind of important that people know our roots. And for me, it's important that we continue to make cider in Somerset and continue to show what we can do as cider makers across the UK, but also the world.
I often ask, what's the ultimate destiny of a business, brackets, are you going to sell? But I think that question is redundant here, and I don't think you're allowed to. It's ever going to cross your brain. But tell us this, last question really. Conventionally, 24-year-olds, you're 24? You're
25.
You're 25.
Yeah.
Mid-20s don't get to contemplate, at whatever time horizon, the idea of taking on the responsibility of running a business of such scale, such reach, such longevity, 1904 onwards, as you will do. And indeed, your brother is yet younger. Does that in any way daunt you? It's an extraordinary concept that none of us will typically have faced, of taking on something like that at your age, whenever it comes.
I think for me, it's actually quite exciting. I see kind of a lot of opportunity to grow what we do and continue what we do as well. I think, yeah, I've got some big shoes to fill. My dad has grown the business massively, but it's exciting.
It's exciting. I think we've all had a sense, both on the one hand, the achievements, but to the understated sense of opportunity, possibility, the dynamism of this business. Any business which can be dynamic, what is it, 124 years, I don't know, I'm going back, 125 years, very nearly, yeah. Well, what are you going to do something for your 125th? You've got some big celebrations?
we don't tend to do, our big celebration is the Wassail in January.
Oh, so tell us, briefly tell us that. So Wassail is an ancient tradition.
Yeah, it's an ancient pagan tradition, and it's about creating a good crop for the following season. And I think it's just an excuse to have a few ciders, to be honest. But we all gather around and we get the Mendip Morris to come and sing, and they dance around the tree, and we actually shoot shotguns into the air as well to encourage a good harvest by scaring away the evil spirits. So.
And the birds, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I personally have found this absolutely fascinating. I do think that sense of the whole entrepreneurialism across generations, the learnings, how one learns by osmosis, by example, by discussion, of course, but by opportunity of working across. The son or a daughter of the boss of a business inherently faces opportunity primarily, but also contextualizing as that person. And you, as you continue to develop and contribute, undoubtedly will be adding so much to the business. You are already, but will be subsequently. I've loved hearing a story of the cider maker's tale with Eleanor Thatcher. Thank you very much.